Howdy, y'all. I'm Josh Crutchmer. My brand new book, Red Dirt Unplugged, comes out December 13th. You can get your hands on it right now at reddirt-unplugged.com. You're listening to The Troubadour.
The Troubadour with Jared Pete Guile and Carly Evans.
Everybody, welcome back to another episode of The Troubadour. We've got Josh Crutchmer with us tonight. He was on The Troubadour episode 107 talking about his book that came out in 2020, Red Dirt. That was clear back January of 2021, seems like a lifetime ago. But Josh has got another book out, and we welcome him back to The Troubadour. Josh, thanks for joining us tonight.
Yeah, hey,
Thank you for having me. Always a blast to come chat with you.
absolutely. And a couple other books. Well, another book out, and then yeah, we got another one
On the
getting
way.
ready to.
All
That's
right,
awesome.
so I'll tell you the story of that one. So I did Red Dirt in 2020 and took a year off, kind of just, went to festivals and was happy to get it out in the world. And it did so great. And then right around the time I started looking for another project would have been late 2022, and I got a phone call one day from Cody Braun of Reckless Kelly. Actually, I got a text saying call me, and that's really weird. It's never happened to me before from him, and so um, it's kind of only one way that conversation is going to go. And I call him immediately, and he says, well, we're going to wind down Reckless Kelly. And he tells me a story that they plan to get off the road. And I know the word is out there and we all know about it. But that he told me that, and I kind of rearranged all my plans and got on a flight the next week and went down to Houston and met the whole band and talked to them. And in one hand, that turned into a nice little Rolling Stone story. But on the other hand, I decided that in 2023, I needed to go out to Idaho, where they're from, tell their story while they were on the front end of this long goodbye tour, and that's what I did. So that came out last year. It was wonderful to do. I loved doing it. It was so informative, and it was so much more than just Reckless and Mickey and the Motor Cars. It was just fascinating to learn the reach of that music across many genres, obviously country being one. um, there were plenty of touches with Nashville and mainstream, but a lot more with Austin. And I just had such a great time doing that. And then really thought, okay, well, now I can take a year off. And no sooner did that get out in the world than I went and saw Wyatt Flores play for the first time. And on the heels of that, I wrote a Rolling Stone piece about Southall. And I was kind of already watching the moment, the blow up that our friend Caitlin Butts was having. And all of a sudden I was like, well, the world of Red Dirt has changed since I wrote this book. For the time it was 3 years ago. And so I decided to spend all of 2024 brushing up on that and not just giving myself a re-education in all that's happened, but getting it out in the world too. The result of that was I have spent a lot of the past year embedded's too strong a word, but very close to Wyatt as he's sort of undergoing a once in a lifetime rise, and we don't really know where that's going to stop, but we know it's not slowing down yet. And at the same time, Great Divide won big at the Texas Music Awards last year, including Band of the Year. Well, the Great Divide is the reason Red Dirt music exists. Without them, I don't write that first book. I'm not sure that we know who bands like Ragweed and Jason Bowen and the Stragglers even are, or if they even exist without them. For them to have this comeback 20 years later, I thought was cool. And then the icing on that is that growing up in the outskirts of Stillwater, Oklahoma, a young and impressionable Wyatt Flores was mentored by two members of the Great Divide.
Mm-hmm.
This year, he took them, Wyatt took the Great Divide to the Grand Ole Opry in July. They got to make their debut thanks to him. This fall, Wyatt, on December 13th, Wyatt is going to headline the Ryman for the first time, and he wanted the Great Divide as direct support. So they get to make their Ryman debut. So I thought that'd be a good day to put this book out, and that's what I did.
Yeah.
So I went last November, to a sold out concert at the Tumbleweed Dance Hall in Stillwater, Oklahoma. was the in their original incarnation the stomping grounds for the Divide, and I wrote about the concert to myself like I would if I were writing a review, but what I was actually doing was starting this book.
Mhm.
And every chapter in Red Dirt Unplugged follows a song in order from that show. So their set list created Red Dirt Unplugged, and organized it. And every single artist that's in, I just looked through the show they played and the music they played and tied each artist to one of the songs. And the whole point that I wanted to make was that a lot is happening in Red Dirt now, but a lot also is happening because of this 30 plus year old band. And I think it's my favorite thing I've ever done. I'm super excited for it. And I know that if you're an artist, your most recent record's your best record, but um, I certainly look forward to topping Red Dirt Unplugged because the stories are so good. I finally figured out how I want to write, and I'm just super excited about it.
That's awesome, and we congratulate you on the book. And I think all fans of Red Dirt are thankful that you're doing this and that
Yeah.
somebody's actually taken the time and effort to chronicle what this movement has been.
I feel
It's
like go ahead, Carly.
I was just gonna say, and it's been so fun to watch all of these artists, like you mentioned, Caitlin, and everything happening with Wyatt. Great Divide having their resurgence
Mhm.
and everything too, and just so many others that it's just and starting to get this more national stage has just been, especially fans, us three who have been fans for
Yeah,
decades, and watching this and the world kind of and the nation picking up on it has just been I don't really know if I have the right words for it, but it's been wonderful at the very least.
I never thought I would see the day, and that's another reason that I
Mhm.
rushed a book out that should have been on a 2 year timeline into 1 year. Was I just didn't want to miss this moment. I didn't. I don't want to write about this scene in 2025 after this magical year we're having has already happened. And in talking to the artists, not just Wyatt, but in talking to the artists that make up the cover of this book, like Taylor Honeycutt and Lance Rourke, and Southall, speaking of blow ups,
Yeah.
and listening, and then just seeing how kind of wide eyed and appreciative of what all that's happening for them right now is. I really thought I just didn't want to miss it because you only
Yeah,
get one rise like this. Whatever happens next, this won't happen again.
I think you're right.
We'll be somewhere, wherever that is, it will not be watching this. So I just wanted to be a part of it. I felt like if I could get to the artists and if I could get to those stories in a timely manner, then now was the time. And it turned out really, really, really good.
Yeah.
From a story perspective. People can judge my writing in December, but from the stories and the artist interviews, their insight and their candor was just, it was unmatched.
Yeah, no, I think striking while the iron's hot is something everyone always tries to do, but this was perfect timing.
Yeah.
And you know, not to go off kilter here, but with the state of the world and you know, it's election year, all kinds of weird stuff going on. Red Dirt Music is in a really,
Yeah.
really good spot and can make all of us look at that one portion of our life and be like, this is good right now. This is good. And artists, like Wyatt, I mean, what a meteoric rise this year. Uh,
Right.
just unbelievable.
I don't know exactly. I was talking to an artist, and because I can't remember exactly what show they're referencing, I'll just leave it in vague terms. But I was talking to an artist this week over text, and somehow, some way, somebody in this scene who's in this book, um, maybe when this goes live on social media, I'll do a little tag and say it was this. But anyway, they have a pretty big show set for election night, and doesn't that just seem like just blissful?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yes.
You enjoy the night and you hear some great music, and then at the very end of it, you get home at 1:30 or 2, and you're half out, and maybe your phone dies, and you don't even pay attention to the election till the next morning. That's the
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
the ideal world to live in, right?
Wouldn't that be wonderful?
I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Me too. I mean,
Yeah.
it's getting harder and harder, I think, and I don't know about you guys, but to find things in life that are something to celebrate and be happy about all the
Yeah.
time. And this, we are, like you said, 2024 has been pretty amazing for Red Dirt and Texas country and songwriters and the artists we all love. And And I think we always kind of felt like it was ours. We found this little niche, but it went beyond all of us now, and the rest of the world is very much aware.
Yeah.
And the proof's in the pudding. I mean, when you're selling out Red Rocks and Wyatt's going back to the Ryman and taking the Divide with him, the Divide makes their Opry debut. That's one thing I wanted to just get your opinion on a little bit. If there was ever a band that deserved to be playing the Grand Ole Opry stage long before they did, it was the Divide. Did you get any insight from those guys? I mean, I know they were thrilled. I know they were happy to be there, but did they feel like it was a long time coming and maybe should have happened earlier, or what was their take on that?
So I actually thought that it would just be really poignant to finish writing this book the day after that show. And what I did was I rode the Great Divide's bus from the Opry to their next show in Little Rock, and we had a big round table. And that's where I thought the book should end. I thought it was really appropriate. So that's
Yeah.
the
Cool.
Red Dirt Unplugged side of it. So here's the insight I have, this of course is all in the book. There is also I also wrote a separate version of this. If this comes out in September, you guys please get your hands on No Depression, that nonprofit journal of roots music, because there is a story that I did on the Great Divide, specifically making their Opry debut in there too, and it'll give you a taste of the book, but also will just give you a really cool perspective, I think. So that's coming out in September, and so the point is, I was there for a lot of it, and
Mhm.
I would say that before that show, before that week, the attitude among the band members um, was that certainly they were grateful and happy for Wyatt, and a lot of them had just the slightest bit of cynicism that was something to the effect of 30 years ago we thought we deserved to play there, and now we know we don't deserve to play there, but Wyatt gets to make that call, and we're happy. And it was kind of like a little bit muted. Well,
Yeah.
then they go there, they show up, and they get back there, and there's that parking spot that says reserved for the Great Divide making their debut, and they you want back, the Opry backstage has like 47 different green rooms, and
Yeah.
they all have different names, and they gave the Great Divide the very first one, and it was called the In the Circle Room. And just sort of watching them go from this isn't a big deal to this is the biggest deal of our career in front of me was just super cool.
Yeah.
Because above all else, the Great Divide's seen a lot. And Mike and Scott and Kelly and JJ and now Bryce, they are some jaded people that they're hard to impress. And they went into that show not expecting to be impressed. And then they get out of that circle, and even when they're just doing sound check and they look at the empty pews and just the ornate design of it, and off to the side is Vince Gill just playing his guitar, um, and there's all these pictures backstage and all this memorabilia, and they get caught up in it, and it was really 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 cool. And so when I followed up the next day to finish writing the book, and we're talking about it, then uh, all that half cynicism before the show had just given way to just pure awe and gratefulness, and everybody was just so blown away by the experience. And also the crowd loved them. They
Cool.
finished their show, they have some gospel tunes in their
Yeah.
catalog. One of them is Mr. Devil, and that's they use that as a set closer a lot. But then also the most famous song in maybe country music, certainly as it relates to the Opry, is "Will the Circle Be Unbroken?" Well, when they play Mr. Devil, they do a tag of that
Yeah.
with Scott Lester singing. And they did that. They closed with that. And it was everything that you would have wanted if you like and appreciate the Great Divide, to watch them make their debut. Because I knew the music was going to be good, but seeing how in awe of the whole thing they were, that's what I took away.
Hmm.
And then going back to just being a journalist about it, that's why I tacked on the No Depression story besides the book, because not everyone wants to buy this book, and I just thought there'd be one more chance for people to understand what an important moment that was, just for them, and I thought they deserved that too.
Yeah. Well, and you mentioned, the journalist aspect of it. What was it like for you, and what was your role with hearing them kind of downplay things and then get so excited? did you jump into more of a friend role? Did you stay the like unbiased journalist? Like what was that like on your end?
I was pretty stoic before and during their set. Now that not to say that I personally was also in the Opry for the first time and I was wide-eyed.
Yeah.
But before, when they were sound checking, they were very much being the people that you know and love in the Great Divide. If you've never been to the Opry, one thing that they're really big on are tours. I mean, they will, unless there's an actual Opry show happening, somebody's getting a tour. And I mean like right up until that music starts. And within 10 minutes of the show ending, the backstage tours are fired back up. And it's like 10:30 p.m. at night. People are walking by the dressing rooms going, hey, y'all have your clothes on, y'all, because there's going to be a tour coming through here. So the Great Divide is backstage. They haven't even sound checked yet. They're just sort of looking out, getting ready to sound check, and a tour comes through. And, a couple of people take selfies just because they're back there. And then they walk away. And just right before they get out of earshot, Mike McClure just shouts, if you look over here to your right, you'll see some D-list celebrities. And that was just sort of like exactly what I expect from them, right?
Yeah.
So it was really easy before and during the show to just sort of go, yeah, that's the Divide I know. And I was able to kind of take notes. But when it was over, I was truly happy for them as friends. And I went out of my way. I tried to record. I'll tell you what I did first, and I'll tell you how it came undone for me personally. Wyatt called him into his dressing room after their set, but before his, and he wanted to do a toast, and he did. He shouted at the members, and he just thanked them for being there and thanked them for the influence they've had, and he raised a glass of wine, and it was all great. And I thought, I'm capturing a really, really good moment. As a journalist, I'm capturing a really, really good moment here. So I joined in the toast, but on my other hand, I had my phone up recording this, just sort of thinking that that would be a good thing to include in Red Dirt Unplugged. But what had happened was I just happened to be in the spot in this toast, which was right next to every single dressing room has a TV in it that broadcasts the Opry show that's happening outside. And in Wyatt's dressing room, that was the case. And so I held my phone right next to the speaker of that TV. So you see the toast, but I have to read lips because all you hear is the audio from out there, like just
Uh,
a steady drum beat and electric guitar. I don't even remember who it was playing into my phone instead. So win some, lose some. But yeah, absolutely. By the end of it, the the part of me that needs to tell these stories had given way to the part of me that was just happy for these guys that I've known for 30 years getting something they probably deserved a long time ago.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
mhm.
exactly my
Yeah.
thoughts too. And I kind of wondered about that. I haven't talked to Max since that happened for them, but I wondered how they all felt about it. Was it and it sounds like it ended up being very appreciative and, a cool, very cool moment. Anytime any artist gets to play the Opry, but having known those guys and what they've done for this scene, like, man, because I've seen a lot of Red Dirt artists get on that stage before the Great Divide.
Yes. I've seen a
And
lot of Great Divides mentees get on that stage before the Great Divide.
exactly
Yeah.
that's what, but also going back to, I was just thinking of knowing Mac and his attitude. I can just imagine him saying, and now looking to your right, here's the D list. I mean, that is so McClure. That is so
Yes.
McClure. I can just imagine him. And that's one thing I like about the band and him, because I know him the best, of course, but he's not impressed by stuff that sucks.
Correct.
And he
Yeah.
will not bullshit you and say, "Oh, keep it up. You're doing good, kid." He'll be like, "Nah, no." And that's what I love. There's a no bullshit factor with McClure.
There's a no bullshit factor with that whole band. And one of the things that I really did learn in writing this and trying to learn some stuff about them myself that I never knew was just how close they were in that original incarnation, especially pre-Atlantic Records.
Hmm.
Um, they lots of bands do it now, and it's kind of a thing on social media and TikTok. Those guys really did like have their own language and their own way of speaking to each other. They would have phrases that would make no sense if you or I said them, and they would say it to each other and crack each other up. Um, so getting to watch a band with that attitude actually really be in just sort of a moment in awe. Probably one of the first, if not the first times I ever got to witness it, and I think it was great.
Yeah. Well, I think that one of the best blessings we've got in Red Dirt in the last few years is the fact that they were able to come back together and become the Great
Yeah.
Divide again, bury the
Yeah.
hatchet. And we had Mike on. He talked a little bit about that. I'd like to get some of the other members on at some point, not necessarily to focus on that, but just what a blessing it is for us to be able to
Yeah.
listen to those guys again and hear Never Could and some of those old songs that when we were young we just would go nuts over.
Mhm.
And then Mike went off and did his thing, and it kind of was ugly for a while. And then they came back together in a coffee shop, had coffee, talked it out, and now they're back
Yeah.
and just get it. I think now they're finally getting the credit they deserved then, but the
Yeah.
world wasn't ready for it at that time,
The
And
world was
now,
not ready. Here's the deal. If a 28-year-old Great Divide burst on the scene right now, they'd be playing theaters in a year and arenas within two. I mean, they just would.
Mhm.
right, the
Uh,
timing, yep,
yeah, the timing is everything. But at the same time, if they don't kick the doors down, there's no Wyatt Flores doing that, and then the world's left
Mhm.
for that. So it's there's always a bit of tragic figure to the Great Divide that will never quite go away. But I certainly like that the story of the Great Divide has been rewritten and gets to be rewritten again indefinitely, really.
yep,
I don't think they're going anywhere now.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, and I love hearing that because my friends and I play a game every so often where we're all hanging out together, and it's
Yeah.
you think of a word, you tell everybody a word, everybody has to pick a song that has that word in the song or the title. And mine always ends up being a Great Divide song somehow.
Yes.
Like it's like, oh, I'm gonna do this song. I haven't done this song yet. And they're like, it's another Great Divide song, Carly. I'm like, they're good.
it's still a
They're
song.
one of my favorite bands. Stop it. And Wildflower was my father-daughter dance at my wedding. And they have had such an impact on like my life and so
Yeah.
many people's, in my circle and stuff too, that it's wonderful to see this happening, even if it maybe wasn't what we would have hoped, like how
Yeah.
big it could have gotten, but it's still being written, as you
It
said.
is still being written. And I think you can't predict the future forever, but I certainly think the next year has a lot of great stuff in store for Red Dirt, Great Divide included.
Yeah,
Mhm.
100%.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about when this is going to make it to air, and there's something that's going to happen. It hasn't happened yet as of the date of this recording, but it will by the time this episode goes out. Tell us about what you know about Wyatt and what's coming up with him.
Man, so sort of my relationship with the younger artists from Oklahoma is kind of always, shaped by whenever I can get down there, whatever somebody tells me about them, because I still do live in New York. My day job is still the New York Times. No
Mhm.
matter, you know, you can neither, you can't take the Oklahoman out of me, but you can't take the Oklahoman out of New York either. So, I very much understand that I exist in two worlds at all times now. But one of the consequences is like I have to sort of be told about people from there that if I were living there, I would just organically find. So I'd heard about Wyatt really since about 2021, and certainly after he put out "Please Don't Go" and it went viral. And every now and then he'd post on TikTok like a cover of a Turnpike song, and occasionally they would share it on their social media. So I knew he existed, um, but I didn't actually see him play a show until last November in New York City at the Bowery Ballroom. And by then, I'd already written a story about him for Rolling Stone. I'd interviewed him, I'd spoken to him over Zoom, and I had seen him at the Great Divide Show, which spurred this entire book I'm writing. But I I'm in my 40s. I'm aware that TikTok exists. I have a TikTok account, but I don't spend my time on there. So I was never the target
Mhm.
audience for Please Don't Go and his music. But people that I trust said he was worthwhile, and I'm always going to listen when they say that. And so I kind of just circle this New York City show on my calendar and said that'll be my first time I experience it. And yeah, I don't really know how to describe it, but I've never had an experience like that the first time I've ever seen an artist. I wish I could I wish I could like pull up my phone and show you all the texts that I sent to people during that show. Um, and they were all some variation of, well, I regret to inform you that Wyatt Flores is really, really, really good. And just, oh my God, Wyatt Flores. I'm sure I sent 4 or 5 of those. But like it's one of those things that like sometimes text messages really do tell a story, and the ones that I sent from that show I'm going to keep forever. So then I started sending other people in music journalism who I hadn't seen Wyatt to shows, namely Joe Hudak at Rolling Stone, who's the guy that lets me put all the stories that I write in there. Super guy. He he goes and sees him make his Ryman debut maybe 3 or 4 weeks later, and he sends me the same text. Oh my God, what am I watching? That's two like really like veterans of this scene that were kind of just left jaws dropped at his set. And it wasn't just that the music was good, and it wasn't just that he's put together a band that has got all the elements of all the things we like. Every good thing about the Randy Rogers band and Turnpike and the Stragglers and all these bands that we love in this scene. He's got elements of it in his band, and they're young and energetic, and then he augments that with just these really really personal songs. Like we appreciate that in Randy, and we appreciated it in Charlie and Robert Earl Keen, and the industry, the larger industry of Americana and alt country sees it a lot, and the BJ Barhams of the world and the Jason Isbells, and it's all well and good. Those guys are great, but seeing this 22-year-old do that at that age with so much of his life having not happened yet was just absolutely gripping. And so then he will tell stories, and he would talk about the pain of his grandfather's suicide before he would play How to Save a Life or something, that cover of the Fray. And then you're listening and you find yourself just crying, and all of a sudden you don't realize you're invested. Like you are invested in Wyatt Flores. And that's one show. And that's the experience that I had. Fast forward 6.5 months later, and he makes his Red Rocks debut. He's direct support for Turnpike. It's sold out, 9,500 people there. And then I sort of by then I was not any newcomer. I had not only immersed myself in his music, I know everything about him, his band, his crew. I know what their favorite food is on off days. I was very, very, very much in tune with Wyatt when he played Red Rocks this May. So I was watching all the people in the crowd because they were all there, not for Wyatt. They were there for Turnpike, but they all showed up early. 9,500 people showed up for Wyatt's set for the same reason I went to Bowery, because they were giving Turnpike the benefit of the doubt. This guy's opening for them. We got to see it. We're going to like him, I think. So then to watch them react when Wyatt takes the stage and everybody's sitting down and they're doing a very polite clap. And then if it were a movie, the scene would just do a hard cut to Wyatt's last song. And that entire place is standing on their feet, screaming West of Tulsa back to Wyatt. They're screaming the chorus back, and it's echoing off all those walls. And I don't know that I've ever seen that in an hour. And it immediately dawned on me that I was watching almost 10,000 people have the exact same experience that I did at that New York City show. So I think we're having this is a really, really, really cool time in music, and so many bands are out there connecting, and it's wild to me that Wyatt is managing to set himself apart even among this moment we're having. He's very unique and personal in a way that I'm not sure we get to see all that often. So I think we should really take our time to appreciate that in him.
Yeah.
And once I was on board, I was all in, and found out that in Wyatt's song Life Lessons, when he references spending 10 days at Oklahoma State, he didn't actually mean my alma mater, Oklahoma State in Stillwater. He meant a little small technical college called Oklahoma State University, Alt-Malgi. Well, that's in my hometown. That's where my grandparents' land was literally across the street from this college. Growing up, my very first college course was there. My dad taught there for a while, so I thought that was cool. And I also claim Stillwater to most people. So what then happens is that he and I get to talking, and I realize that I'm seeing somebody who's 22 years younger than me. and he's reminding me so much of the life and that I was living away from his music. Just like his personality reminded me of myself, and I was just like, all right, well, we're gonna be friends, and we were. Like,
Yeah.
we had a great little moment this summer. He took me bass fishing um, in rural Payne County, Oklahoma, and we caught a bunch of fish and had a great time. And it all lasted about 30 minutes before this massive summer storm blew through, and Wyatt drove us back to his parents' place down these dirt roads, exceeding the speed limit, but also outrunning the storm. And it brought back so many memories. So, very quickly, in the case of Wyatt, I went from somebody just trying to tell his story to somebody with a personal investment in him, and I have zero regrets about that, because that is a long-winded way to say when this podcast comes out, he will have told the world that his album Welcome to the Plains is coming out. I believe it comes out in October, and I bet this episode comes out before then. But it's a 14-track full-length record. It's not an EP.
Nice.
He went and had Bo Bedford produce it. The songs are absolutely gripping. It is a ride. It is going to be up there. We've had a bunch of great music come out this year, and this is going to be in the discussion. It's going to be in the top 5. It's got everything. It's got him rebounding from the mental health break that he took this year, and it's got a very poignant song that he played at the Opry called "Oh Susanna" that he wrote for his fan base. And the hook of it is, I'm sorry, guys, I can't save every single one of you. I wrote "Please Don't Go" for one person, but I can't save the world with that song, and I'm only human. But he, that's the lyric, but the melody, it's such a great up-tempo rocking song that you feel a range of emotions listening to it. There's the title track is "Welcome to the Plains," and he shot a video out in one of the most plainsiest of plains places I've ever seen in Oklahoma, with these wild horses running around behind him in the background. I can't tell people that listen to this what to like and not to like about music, but if you're a Wyatt fan or you were considering being one, this album is only going to make you more of one.
Cool.
And there's not a sleeper on it. There are some times that you do realize you're listening to somebody in their lower 20s singing, but that's his age, and that's who he's writing songs. That's his life experience, and even those I find to be endearing to me personally. So that is going to be a big headline this fall in the world of not just Red Dirt, but the larger scene of country music. And I'm excited to write about that. The chapter I wrote about Wyatt in this book is the longest single unbroken thing I've ever written, and that includes like college and law school essays. I've never written something that long. And when I go back and reread it now, and the people that, not just his stories, but the people in his life that talked about him, it's just great. So that is very exciting, and I certainly think that that's going to make the same sort of big waves that new music this year from the Red Clay Strays and a few others have, where they just sort of give you this feeling that not just Red Dirt, but then not just Texas music, but that we might actually be seeing a bit of a resetting of country music, and that's a good thing. And this album's only going to make you feel that even more.
Yeah, agree 100%. And I concur with the state of the world changing on a bigger scale, and thankfully, I think social media is behind a lot of it. But Red Clay Strays, I think I told Carly about them a couple of years ago, and it was right when I first saw them showing up on my social feeds. I was like, we got to get these guys. So I reached out to them, and it was probably 6 weeks, and they were way too big to come on a podcast like us. I mean, when Theo Vaughn and all these guys are sitting down with them, and I have nothing but, I'm just like so happy for bands like that when you first see them, you're like, these guys are something special. I don't know what they're going to do, but they're going to do something. And then within, 18 months, they're big time. And that's just wonderful. I was going to go back and tell you were talking about Wyatt and the text you were sending. So Wyatt played in Council Grove, Kansas here about 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, something
Yeah.
like that. I was not able to make the show, but I have a couple buddies that live in that town. And so I sent one a message and I said, "Hey, how's the show?" Because I knew he was there. How was it? And he says, "Yeah, it was great. Better than I expected. Told stories behind the songs, and he has a lot of pain for a 20-something-year-old." So,
Yeah.
so obviously the lyrical content and just the way he presents himself on stage and tells the stories is connecting with people. And
Yeah.
for somebody that young, that's it's a little bit sad, but it's also awesome that he can connect with his crowd. And that's, I've always said this. I think a lot of artists, a lot of great artists, especially ones that are lyrically driven and write great lyrics, the reason they got there, most of them, is because of the pain they went through, and the music and the songs have become their release and their therapy. And it sounds like he is right in that wheelhouse.
Yeah, and he just really, really, really makes you feel that. And in ways that I would say are unique even among artists that can make you feel that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you almost get caught by surprise the way you get invested in him and his story. And I don't know that I've ever heard anybody see one of his shows and not said that. I was fortunate enough at Red Rocks to watch the show he played there. They were opening for Turnpike. I was fortunate enough to watch that with Stacy Felker, Evan Felker's wife, and she said the exact same thing. She was in tears when he was playing "Please Don't Go" near the end, and she's like, "Why am I doing this? Who is this?"
Who is this little
But it
shit?
was just like, we were won over like everybody else, and that's really cool. And I also think, Wyatt, you better first of all be listening to this, and second of all, you should come on this podcast, and
Thank you.
also I'll come back on with you if you're out there, um, especially after Red Dirt Unplugged, reddirt-unplugged.com comes out. Yeah, but Wyatt, if you're out there, I think you wouldn't mind me saying that the break he took, and I wrote about this with him. I talked to him and wrote about it for the New York Times in May, when he canceled a bunch of shows and really did focus on his mental health. Um, he came out of that like genuinely changed and happier. And you never know what the future holds, but um, seeing him for this last 6 or 7 months play and be genuinely happy and not look like a heartbroken person and still manage to connect like that, I'm very happy for him in that way.
Yeah.
It is an argument for taking care of yourself, and I hope that we as a music industry on the whole can embrace that more than maybe we ever have. I would be certainly happy to see the bottle up your feelings, suck it up, and rub some dirt on it attitude that we all grew, at least this group on this podcast all grew up in, and saw applied in music. I would really like to see that just go away and never come back. And I point to Wyatt as somebody who I think is a shining example of that. And anyway, buddy, you're out there listening, and I hope you didn't mind me telling these stories, because I'm really happy for you.
Yeah. No, me too. Like I was watching him come up, and I work in mainly alt radio now, and I even had a rep, have you heard of Wyatt? Like, my label just signed him, and I was like, oh yeah, like I, kind of like you, I wasn't the target audience, 40-year-old woman, 30-year-old woman, have a TikTok, not on it all the time. But yeah, I was like, I've heard great things. He's doing great things. The little bit that I have heard, I've loved. And when he came out saying he needed to take that break, I was like a proud freaking mama, like a big, I was just like, I was so unbelievably proud of him. And I'm sure, because you have to think about when you make that decision, especially when your career is like kind of on the fast track, then at that point, and you're blowing up and you decide to stop. Getting that momentum back is so hard. And that had to be so damn scary too, for him to make that decision at that point in his career. And the fact that he could not only come back stronger, that it doesn't seem like he rushed himself back with the way you're saying you see him now on stage, but also to almost pick up, I don't even know if it was right where he left off. I feel like he kind of fast forwarded a bit and like skipped a couple spaces to come back where he is now, and then just growing from there is so amazing.
So I went out with him. Um, he played Mission Ballroom in Denver for the first time last month, so in July. And if you know the inner workings of Denver, you have to sell out Mission Ballroom before you get a Red Rocks invite. So he sold out
Yeah.
Mission Ballroom, great. Um, he also hinted at this upcoming album, Welcome to the Plains, during the encore. If you own any of his albums or his EPs, I guess up to now, or you own any of his merch and you're listening, you know that a constant design element to him is that skeleton. That skeleton sort of become his little logo. Um, so it comes out in his encore, and there's a video screen behind him, and nobody's left. I mean, the place still is holding almost 4,000 people, and leaves the stage during the encore break. They hit play on a video on the screen, and it's just this it's that skeleton. And off from the side of the screen, a revolver comes, and the skeleton gets shot in the heart, collapses in a heap, and catches fire. And then when Wyatt walks back out, the animation pans back out, and he's sitting on this burning skeleton's on an open prairie, and the sun is rising over it. And he plays what'll be the lead single off of Welcome to the Plains. He plays Don't Want to Say Goodnight, and that was his way of saying it's a new day. I don't know how many of his fans got that in real time, but if you were at that show and you're listening to this, that's what he was doing, and you got it now. I mean, the second he announces the album, you're going to get it. But if you were there in that moment in that show, that's what you were seeing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And Mission Ballroom, what a venue to do that in too. Like I'm just
Right?
picturing it in my mind now too. That's amazing. I actually got a little bit of goosebumps. So no, very cool. That kid, he's an old soul. He's just so
He
ahead
is
of
an
his
old soul,
time.
yeah.
It's amazing.
He's a very old soul. I will give him full credit for that. I believe, I think you can. You know what? I'll put it out on when he announces the album. Somebody go find me on either of my social media handles, JS Crutchmer or Red Dirt Unplugged on Instagram, and I will actually put that video up that I was telling you about. I'll put the video up when he announces the album. So
Awesome.
whenever you hear this podcast, if you just go if you go look at the Reels page of either of my social media handles, that'll be up there. I just didn't want to I didn't want to spoil his thunder too soon, but that's such a cool moment, that, and one of the, like, just what a gutsy ballsy move to
Yeah,
do within a year of a break like you've taken. I think it's a very cool story.
it
And I'm
is.
very happy that this book I've written is equal parts Great Divide and Wyatt. I just think that's the story of Red Dirt right now.
Yeah. And it's amazing how and they come full circle together too so well. And I think that's absolutely perfect. And we'll try to grab one of the reels too, and Pete'll I'm volunteering him, but put it in the show notes too
Yeah.
with the direct link to it. Once
Yeah.
Oh
this
yeah, I'll send
episode
you.
comes
You'll
out.
have that link. You'll have that link when we hang up this call.
Sweet.
Perfect.
Well, for the people that are too lazy to go to my show notes that I work so hard on, Josh, hit the socials again, your socials, and where they can go buy the book.
You got it. You can find me on Instagram at my personal account is JS Crutchmer. That's for my middle name is Steven. But you can also find the book at Red Dirt Unplugged, and both of those, my personal account and professional account, talk to each other. You can also find the book on Facebook at Red Dirt Unplugged. Now the Twitter handle for the book, because it's too long, is like RD_unplugged. But if you search the name, you'll see it there. So that's the socials. And a lot of the artists that are in the book will be sharing it all fall in the run up. So it shouldn't be too hard to find. But if you just want to go straight to the source, reddirt-unplugged.com.
Perfect. Folks, I will have all those linked within the show notes, but you just heard them from Josh's mouth. Josh, just as a fan of this type of music and a guy who appreciates this type of music and the writers and the artists who make it, thank you for what you're doing. It's I know you're probably making some money on the books, and it's a good thing too for you, but thank you for what you're doing. It takes a lot of work, and you've done a marvelous job at it. Fact is, just getting some writing out in Rolling Stone and getting some street cred for these people has been great too. So very much appreciate it.
I appreciate that. And one thing about my day job at the Times, for now, it means that all this is a luxury, and I really can do it as a labor of love. Now, maybe long term that's not the case, but right now, any money I make on it is certainly secondary to getting to tell the stories.
Yeah.
And it's just something I wish I had been able to do my entire career, but I'm so happy to be doing it now, and I really
Yeah.
appreciate not just you guys, but your listeners and the fans of Red Dirt and Texas music for seeing the work that I do this way. I really appreciate that.
Well, like I said, we appreciate you. Ladies and gentlemen, that's been Josh Crutchmer here on the Troubadour podcast talking about his new book, Red Dirt Unplugged. Please go get a copy. Links in the show notes where you can pre-order and go check it out. And we'll be back in a couple weeks with a brand new episode here on the Troubadour.
The Troubadour with Jared Pete Guile and Carly Evans.